Hi everyone, welcome back to this vlog. I am pretty nervous and let me just explain why. Tonight I'll be moderating a panel for the library here in Singapore. So they're called the National Library Board, NLB, and they have kindly invited me to be a moderator for a panel on climate fiction. So they did reach out to me like maybe 3 months back, sometime in April, to get it started, to meet the other panelists and all that, and it's been quite a journey. I'm really like in disbelief right now because it's happening tonight and it's been sort of at the back of my mind for like 3 months. So anyway, today's condition, I am a bit nervous, and so I don't know, maybe that's been showing through my body in the past few days. Like I've been getting a lot of breakouts on my skin, as you can tell, and I had a bit of a scare, like a cold, almost a cold over the weekend, but I am fine now. That was really shocking for me as well. And yeah, I've just been trying to keep calm and revise whatever I've prepared for the panel. So if by the time this video goes out, the panel would have been over, so I hope it went well. Anyway, one of the reasons why I wanted to turn on this vlog today was to kind of document this entire process, but also to get back into the whole rhythm of vlogging and being on this channel and focusing on books once again. I feel like I had been in a little bit of a slump the past 2-3 months with regards to doing stuff on my channel, and I think that of course coincides with me taking on a full-time job. Sort of, it's not really a full-time job, it is kind of a full-time job, but it's very confusing, and I think that this is pretty common for a lot of people to be stuck in a very weird position when it comes to their jobs. But anyway, there's a book that I want to talk about in this vlog, and it's called Southeast Asian Ecocriticism: Theories, Practices, and Prospects, edited by John Charles Ryan. I'm really excited to read this. I've read the first 2 chapters and they are great. They're just like essays talking about eco-criticism as an entire field of study and relating that to the Southeast Asian context, some of the gaps in the scholarship and sort of more specific context. Kind of like my first time reading about eco-criticism, so that's really cool. I never really realized that the things I talked about on my channel kind of lean towards eco-criticism already anyway, so that was a really interesting insight for me to realize for myself, that I was really kind of converging on this field of eco-criticism, and seeing how my background of being interested in anthropology and literature kind of intersects in this entire like field of study, which is I think this is a pretty profound like aha moment for me. So I thought that the whole field of eco-criticism is really cool, and it talks about, I guess the origin of eco-criticism is about how literary traditions have traditionally portrayed the environment and just sort of human and nature interactions and things like that. But I do think that one really good point that this book raised was how the entire history of colonization actually impacted the way that Southeast Asian literary traditions have been passed down, because I think a lot of eco-criticism first emerged in again like Euro-American centric places where you haven't had such a major disruption of power by external influences, like foreign influences, as much as colonization. Of course, there have always been conflicts of power, but I don't think it has really happened on such a large scale like colonization and for such a prolonged period of time. And I think especially in the Southeast Asian region, there haven't been a lot of scholarship into this whole thing. There's a lot to be studied in terms of how environmental conservation and environmental language understanding has been passed down through generations, and how exactly the history affects it all. Definitely I don't really hear a lot about post-colonial work. Here, with regards to Southeast Asia, I don't know, I feel like, especially when I read a lot of the indigenous scholarship and mostly the Native American scholarship, it is really, really good and very, very encouraging. And you know, again, the book also mentions that there is a language barrier. There are published, you know, works in Southeast Asian languages, and they are also very influential and very impactful, but they cannot reach like an English speaking world, which is also very closely associated with, again, like Central Euro American powers, right? So I guess it's kind of like a conundrum in a way. I kind of think that at this where we at right now, Southeast Asia as a context is so rife with like so many meanings that it's still very politically complex today, and we don't have that kind of discourse on a more casual level, at least here in Singapore, because here a lot of things are kept very apolitical for a lot of reasons, so it is difficult to get into those conversations from here and also just across the region. So I'm pretty excited to read the whole book and to sort of get a glance into what has been going on in terms of scholarship and really like the discourse that needs to be encouraged, I think. But that's just me speaking off the top of my head, so we'll see. Also, it just so happens that I am nearing the 2-year mark of my booktube journey. So I think it's sometime in June, so technically it's already 2 years, and I kind of want to do something to celebrate. Do leave your suggestions down below as to what I should do to celebrate the 2 years. I don't know what else to do other than a Q&A. I think I've done that a few times on my channel, so it may not be the most interesting format to do. Yeah, but wow, 2 years on booktube. It's been a while. It's been quite a journey, and it's not been easy, I think, as a creator trying to do the things that I want to do. But okay, enough of me talking. It's time to get on with the day, and once it gets closer to my panel, let's check back in and see how I'm feeling. It's time to eat some cake. I don't actually know what flavor this is because my cousin brought it over for us. Oh, this is the plate that I made. Look at it. It's so pretty. Tastes like mango. I think it's mango. I don't know whether anyone would be curious, but basically this is what I've prepared for the panel. This is the synopsis of the panel, and I basically came up with the whole framework of how the panel would go. I don't know, man. I should probably practice the whole thing. There is a Q&A section. Well, anyway, the panel is more for the authors to share their works and their opinions. So I'm trying to be chill about it. Trying to make sure that I focus on the flow of the whole thing and to not talk much, because in my experience, good moderators don't talk that much. Today it's my greatest privilege to be moderating a discussion on climate writing and how we can make sense of such writing, especially situated within our Singaporean context. I'm super excited to hear from our panelists today on their thoughts on climate writing and how they've developed their own writing practice in this direction. So let's start with a brief introduction to the panelists and the work they do. Before we delve deeper into the nuances of what climate writing is about, I'm quite curious if our audience has read climate fiction before. So let's take some time to fill out a poll so we get to know you all a little bit better. Have you read a climate-fi book before? Have you read a climate-fi book before? It is currently 7 p.m. and the tech run is at 7:30. I have actually set up this little ring light here. It's a bit glaring. I don't know whether I should leave it on. It feels a bit glaring, but later I guess I'll adjust it during the tech run and to see whether it's worth having that extra light, because at night the only light that I have is the room light, the overhead room light, so I'm not too sure whether that's like whether the lighting will be too harsh. Before I forget, these two books. Okay, this one is by Esther Vincent Sherming, who is one of the panelists in the panel. So this is her collection of poetry, and this was co-edited with Angela Poon. Oh my god, I just realized that there's a little bit damage at the bottom, unfortunately. But this is a co-edited collection of personal essays talking about ecofeminism in Singapore. So that's pretty cool, and it's quite nice to have her on the panel. So the other panelist, Melissa, has done, I think she is most known for her work called Others Is Not a Race, talking about her experience growing up as Eurasian in Singapore, and also talking about her heritage in the region, so not just being restricted to one area in Singapore, but to talk about the greater Eurasian heritage in Singapore. And she actually does talk about Kristang, which was something I mentioned in an earlier video about the language of Kristang being a Creole language that is being preserved. So yeah, if you remember that, she's actually quite involved in Kristang preservation as well. So that was pretty cool. I didn't realize that there was a connection there. So that's nice. So I have a few minutes before the tech run, and here is me just trying to get used to getting ready for the thing. So I'll check back in later, or maybe even during the panel. We'll see whether I have time to even film myself doing the panel. Thank you for sharing that, and yeah, thank you both for sharing so much during this panel. Like, I know it was a bit chaotic, but thank you for accommodating so much to the questions and also to our audience today. I just wanted to kind of conclude the panel on a bit more of a positive note. I know that climate and environmental writing can be a really tough topic to write about, but what I felt today was that, I think underlying all of this was a sense of wanting to write, a better possibility, or wanting to be able to connect much more empathetically to one another and to our earth and all that. So I mean, that's why I took away from listening to both of you. Okay, the panel is over. I didn't manage to catch myself in the panel, but I'll add some screenshots that my friends took of me in the panel. I don't know whether you can tell, but I'm so absolutely flushed right now, and I think I stumbled a lot in the first 10 minutes or so, and we didn't really get to the meat of the discussion until 20 minutes in, which was already halfway through. So wow, I think there are a lot of areas that I can improve on. In terms of moderating, I find that I really just lost all sense of nuance when I was moderating. My questions became so dumb when I started moderating, so I really gotta work on that. But it was a good first panel, I guess, a good first experience trying to do this. The preparation was alright, but I guess I gotta work on the execution. So yeah, if you attended the panel, let me know what you thought about it afterwards, or in the comments or something. Oh! Hi, it is the following day, and I am realizing that this vlog is gonna be so boring because I have just been sitting in my room the whole 2 days. But okay, if you do want to rewatch the panel, it's actually here on the National Reading Movement Facebook page, so you can actually watch the panel as a full. I don't know whether they're gonna keep it up here for long though, so check it out if you want. I just wanted to do a quick debrief, I guess, about this whole experience. I felt like the 1 hour was so short. I felt like we could have gone deeper into like the role of climate writing and why cli-fi is important. But I think a lot of people really enjoyed the panel, especially listening to the authors kind of grapple with the more existential parts of their writing journey and how like eco-anxiety was such a thing, and to share such like beautiful writing as well. I think because we were talking about Robin Wall Kimmerer's book Braiding Sweetgrass, I think it was as much like a personal reckoning as it was like a literary movement, and I think that's what I learned. That's what I took away from the panel, at least. Yeah, and I will link down some of the videos I've done on like climate books or like environmental books. Cli-fi is still a thing that I want to push for in my channel, hopefully moving forward. I did do a video called How to Look Up, which talks about like the need to have radical imagination when it comes to dealing with the climate crisis. And now I'm actually reading Generation Dread, and I think it's by Britway, if I'm not wrong. And it talks about privilege as well. It does talk about, you know, what role does the privileged industrialized countries, people living in these countries, what can they do with their relative comfort and privilege. And I've talked about this before, like several times on my channel, that it's often the case that visionaries, that people who can take risks, right, are people who have safety nets, people who don't have much to lose when they take risks. And of course, this is not to say that people who have been marginalized, or people who have been oppressed, or people who have been disadvantaged, that they don't take risk. Oftentimes we see people taking the risk precisely because they have nothing else to lose, right? If everything in their life is already so challenging and so disadvantaged. But like the kind of steady experimentation that deals with radical imagination, the kind that deals with like this kind of optimistic, idealized version of daydreaming and all that, tends to really fall on those that have the free time, the luxury of resources to tinker with those ideas. Like a certain percentage of things are going to go wrong. We can say there's a certain proportion that's going to be damaged. We know temperatures are rising. We know to what extent. Like we know the numbers. I mean, sort of, we're being surrounded by them. But I still think there's such a huge block still in the way that we look at ourselves, like the way that we write our own stories, the way that we relate to society. And I guess that's what I hope cli-fi can do in the future. And even now, I want to read more cli-fi. And to me, cli-fi is not a specific genre of its own. I do think that there are many types of writing that don't identify themselves as cli-fi, but there is an environmental message in it. There is a kind of story message that reaches beyond the human, that taps into our ecological sensibilities, and that counts as cli-fi to me. So I guess that's kind of like my takeaway from this panel, is that there's still a lot to do in this whole field of like writing. And I also question myself a lot, like what is my role in all of this, because I just read books and I tell you all about it. People have asked me before whether I want to read, whether I want to write books, whether I want to be a writer. I don't have an answer for that because I've never really had like a inclination to want to write and to ask people to read my writing. I've never really felt that, but I've always had the desire to read widely, to think widely, and then to share. So at least I know for now that's what I can do. But anyway, this will be the end of my day in my life vlog. Again, I am so sorry that this is such a boring vlog because I'm literally just in my room in the same seat, just having a just having an anxious breakdown and then like subsequently intellectualizing all of it again. But that's why I do on a regular here on this channel. I'll catch you in the next video. I'm not sure when. I keep saying that. You're probably gonna see me a few times a month. That's the least I can promise you. Yeah. And thank you so much for sticking with me through this journey. I felt like I just accomplished like a big thing on my channel. I'm kind of proud of myself, like in retrospect, but also really happy that people turned up and people wanted to learn. I think that was really heartening. I'm also very grateful to the two authors that gave their time, especially for someone who, especially to someone who is new to all this. But okay, that's it from me, and I'll see you in my June wrap up, I guess. Bye.